And trust me, if you're just showing up to be stale and boring, they really don't love you.
Yes, probably not. What would happen if we just told the truth?
Welcome to TruthWorks, where we dig into the nitty-gritty of leadership and work.
And what needs to change? I'm Jessica Neal.
And I'm Patty McCord.
Our journey together started in HR, but trust us, it's evolved into something wild, honest, and well, a bit rebellious.
So throw out the handbook. We're here to redefine rules to work for us, not against us.
Let's dive into another episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of TruthWorks. I'm Jessica Neal, and I'm here with
Patty McCord, and I'm pretty excited about today. This is sort of an impromptu freeform day of podcasting.
I know. I always love when we do this together and just chat about stuff.
Yeah, and we have fans now, and they write such great questions to us. So we're going to dedicate this podcast to what we call Career Confessions, which is when the folks out there that listen to our podcast write in questions for us to answer, and they're really great. So we love this part.
They're really great. Before we dive in, though, how are you? What's up?
I'm in the middle of a bomb cyclone, atmospheric river.
Well, I know that's like a bomb cyclone. They're calling it an atmospheric river. I'm like, what is it? Is it a bomb or is it a river?
It's a bomb river. And you know what? Like we used to just have storms. I love that every year, like it gets more dramatic. You know, it's going to be the end of the world is coming because it's a bomb cyclone. However, it is probably going to rain like a mofo and winds blowing and all that kind of stuff. But that's okay. It's wintertime in California, and that's what we do.
That is, if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky, it'll rain in the winter. I'm moving houses. And it's crazy.
Isn't it funny? It's like no matter how far you go, it's the same process.
Oh, it's so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I moved down the street. And
it doesn't matter how far.
I thought, how hard could this be, right? I'm going to just schlep stuff down there. No.
It's still just as hard. And I'm trying to get rid of all the junk, all the crap. Mm-hmm. And we just have so much of it. Mm-hmm. I've got two men who, one is 5 and I don't blame him, but the other one may be a bit of a hoarder.
Yeah, we could, go deeply into what all of this means.
We could, but we don't. We have to do career confessions.
As you clear out
I'm cleansing
the detritus of these two men.
I know. My 5-year-old and my husband.
It's funny that you're calling Hudson a man, right?
I know. Well, he's going to be. I don't want him. I'm really trying hard for him not to be, a messy man for whomever he loves in his life later on.
It's a long time, babe.
I know. Right now he's just gross.
You got a while, and being the mother of complete grown-ups, they change their ways when it's their mess.
Oh, I'm sure
that they have to live in.
Like, I'm like, are you going to help me pick up? He's like, no. And I'm like, well, then I'm not going to play with you later. He's like, okay, I'll help you. But his helping is, not really help. It just makes it harder.
I know.
And I love him. He's so cute. So shall we dive in?
Let's dive into our questions. Shall I read the first one?
Sure.
Okay, here's the question. Is it bad to interview at other companies if you have no intention of taking the job? I love my current role, but was curious to see if my CV had strength in the current job market. So I popped a few random applications into different similar roles, including more senior ones, and I got an interview. Made me realize just how much I actually love my current job, and it would take a lot for me to ever leave. I still did the interview pretending I was interested and came in second to getting the role, but I was so relieved when I got the rejection email.
Oh, I like this one. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should interview your whole career. I think it's really good practice because eventually you're going to have to do it anyway. And I think there's so I don't like the premise right? That he's faking it and saying, I'm just faking it to see what I'm worth out there. That's okay. But, you should go into every conversation with an open mind thinking, like, if they make me an offer I can't refuse, then I won't refuse, right?
Or you might really like what they're up to.
Yeah. And I think that telling a stranger what you want is a really good exercise because you can't help but tell your boss kind of what they want to hear and how, they're so intimate. Yeah. And the act of telling a stranger makes you realize, like, this happened to this person. Oh, wait a minute. Like, the things I want, I kind of already have.
Yeah. When I would go off an interview, one, it would either validate that I was had a very good situation or not. Right. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that I loved about the experience is that I got really good at talking about what I do. Because when you're at work, you don't really have to talk. Everybody knows what you do. So you're not going off saying, hey, here's what I did today and blah, 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 the impact that I had. And so when you would go and interview and people would ask you, what do you do? And you're like, huh? And then you start telling it and you're like, God, I do a lot. The impact that I've had is tremendous.
Oh God. I mean, if I go back in my career, I remember one time thinking, my boss is such an asshole. I hate my boss. I could just leave. And in my mind, I wrote my resume, my CV, and I thought, and I'm reading it in my mind going, oh, I'm a professional. Yeah. Like, I actually have skills. And it just never occurred to me being in my job that I had accumulated skills. Then it was like, well, this company just isn't worth it. I'm not going to do that anymore. Well, I'm a professional. And then after time in your career, you're like, my organization got rearranged and there's a new structure and I got a new boss and I don't know, she and I are it's not going to work out. Right. So that's okay. I am a professional. The CV, I can make a choice. And I think that interviewing gives you what you just said. It gives you confidence. Mm-hmm. That you can take back if you decide to stay.
Well, yeah, but also knowing how to define your impact, it's very helpful if you do stay because you can talk to your boss about that as well. Mm-hmm. Because when your boss comes back and says, well, I don't know how this is going or that is going, then you can say, well, let me tell you about these things, right? Mm-hmm. That I'm doing very well. So it's just helpful all around. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your company and what you love and you don't love. And then you get to learn about another organization.
Right.
And sometimes you might fall in love there too.
Right. And there's two other sort of bonuses you get. One of them is if you're a hiring manager, somebody like us, you get to practice seeing what it feels like on the other side of the table, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh gosh, I'm nervous and I do this for a living, right? Can you imagine what the person on the other side of me feels like who's an introvert who's never been away from home before, right? So that's one thing that you learn that. The other thing is if you do a great job, which you should never do anything half-ass, and they love you and you're number two, look at the connection you have now. Right. Yeah. So now you've expanded your network. So I just talked to somebody the other day about my saying about it's not what you know or who you know, but it's who knows what you know. Right. So it's so networking, people think it's just about collecting other people in your network and I'm connected to you and we're Facebook friends or we're on LinkedIn and whatever, we share Insta photos. But the truth is if you don't know what I know, then you're not going to think of me. And in this case, for this person, they're going to remember number two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to call you up for something else.
Or to see if you know anybody. And you can call them up and say, hey, by the way, I really liked your company. I had a great time interviewing there. I know somebody who's interested in a job, or I'd be interested in exploring further down the line. So, great question. Good.
Yeah, it is a good question. And the answer is yes. Do it.
Do it. Do it. Don't be scared. And the other part I want to make sure that I say is it's not cheating on your spouse when you interview at another company. You're not married to your company. You work there, right? Yeah. And so the first time I told somebody to do that, Reed caught me. He came in, did you tell, our head of product to go interview? And I'm like, yeah, she's really unhappy and she doesn't really like what she's doing and she wants to do something else. And I said, so go find out if the grass is greener. He's like, you told her to go interview. I'm like, yeah, because she'll be back in a hot minute.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know.
Yeah. You got to see the other side. And a lot of times the grass is not greener.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My turn. Here's the question. I want to hear more about your approaches to team management. How do you deal with conflicts within a team? Can you make a team more compatible through any bonding exercises or accept that the team's chemistry isn't working and make some changes?
Well,
I bet we have a lot to say about this.
I remember somebody I hired from some other big company coming in and going, my team is just really dysfunctional and there's a lot of people that I'm starting to believe don't really belong. I'm like, right, I told you that in the interview. Right. Remember I said, like, the reason we're hiring you is we think that it's probably not the right team. Right. And we want you to figure it out, get the right team in place, get going. And he's like, he goes, yeah, I know. I'm like, so what do you want? What is it you want from me? He's like, well, I was thinking we could do some bonding exercises. I'm like, you mean like trust falls or a rope course? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, yeah, no. Like, no. Here's what we hired you to do. Build a team. Not go to HR for an outdoor activity.
Right.
We don't do that. Right. No. We're going to help you figure it out. But yeah, you have some people on your team that are the wrong people. You can't make the right team out of this group of people. So how are we going to figure that out? Which is the question this person's asking.
Yes, I think so. I will also say, literally an hour ago, was having this conversation with the CEO. I pushed on the right people. And you know this, Patty, there's always, sort of times there's some new people on the team. There's some people that have been there for a while. It takes some time for those things to like sort themselves out.
Forming, storming, norming, performing.
Exactly. But, outside of pushing on are they the right people, the only thing I know to do, and I learned this from working with you and Reed, is to address it head on.
I was just going to say.
Because, you are going to have times when teams, cross-functional teams, leaders, whomever, don't agree. And we would always say, like, if I came to you and said, oh, Patty, so-and-so on this team is like, na. And you'd say, well, what did that person say when you told them that? And I'd be like, oh, well, I didn't tell them that. And then,
I like when they say, oh, I can't tell them that. And I would say, you just told me.
Right. Yeah.
Right? That the words are there.
Yeah.
May not be the right, order.
Right.
but if you can tell me, you can tell them.
Exactly. And then, I loved what Reed would do if we were in a meeting with him. He's like, okay, let's call them or let's get them to come over here right now. And then we'd literally we'd have the conversation right there. And I think you just have to nip these things in the bud real quick and actually have a tough conversation. And the thing that encouraged this CEO that I was talking about an hour ago is that the team has a good foundation. They seem to like each other and respect each other. And then you should be able to talk about the tension and walk away with a different solution than what you're doing now, because what you're doing now, it's not working.
Yeah. And sometimes as a leader, it's in this situation, it's really, really, really important to model disagreement, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it's perfectly reasonable that a new team member, a change in organization, or a change in what you're doing, or a team member leaving, or all that that's always going to create tension. And tension isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And debate's not a bad thing either. And if people are disagreeing and arguing about it, particularly about something that's about work, then that's an issue for the whole team.
Yeah, I agree.
And so when you do you two don't come out until you're friends again, may not be the right solution, when it's a team dynamic about something that's bigger than those two particular people.
Agreed. But generally, in my experience, these tensions stem from one or two people. And so you do kind of have to address it with them, but also address it with the team after you've done that.
Yeah. And just the other thing that people, when it's the snarky one-on-one thing, well, you know how Jessica is.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that I don't like her. It's just that she's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Or she has the wrong opinion about something, or she's just wrong. Right. And you're right. Our favorite saying in the world is, what'd you say when you told her that? Yeah. But also that's just, it's usually about something that's important to one person or the other.
Right.
And so it's important to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so the more you isolate those two people and let them keep having their fight, the more destructive it is. Because, I mean, I've said this a million times on our podcast, like whenever there's conflict between individual team members, that's the show everybody wants to watch.
Oh, yeah.
It's just people do. It's human nature, right? And so
what's going to happen in the da-da-da meeting?
And they just sit back and go, oh, here it comes. This is going to be good, right? Or, wow, that was a career limiting move.
Yeah.
That was when I worked at Sun Microsystems. That was our favorite saying, like, oh, she stood up and like said something to the boss. That's a career limiting move.
Yeah.
And if you can demonstrate that it's not, like, what's the conflict here? And, you know, it's probably happened to you. Half the time when you really bring whatever it is out in the open, people are like, well, maybe it wasn't that big a deal. It's like, okay, can we move on?
Yeah, exactly. And we would often do that. So, you know, at Netflix, we would talk to the two individuals. Okay, let's go debate this in front of everybody.
Yep.
And then we'd have the debate in front of everybody. And then, you know, I think when you can talk about the hard things openly, you can solve them. But, you know, you have to do it in a respectful way. And if somebody's not doing it in a respectful way, then that's a different thing. But if you can talk about the things, it doesn't mean you can't be passionate about them.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to say that's particularly important for managers, which is a really easy trap to get into, which is if you get in the middle of solving this problem between the two people, it will never solve. Right. I talk to you and you tell me, you know, how crappy somebody else is. The other person says, oh, well, you think I'm crappy. You should hear what Jessica did. Right. And you're like, oh, yeah, well, you know what I did. I mean, it's like,
no,
seriously,
you can't do that.
You cannot
have to...
do. And it's so easy.
It's very easy.
Because you're in a one-on-one with somebody and you're having a conversation. You're like, what went wrong? And the person, you say, oh, you know
Jessica.
How she is, right? Like, did it again. I told you. And we want to be the answer.
Yeah, right.
We want to solve the problem because we think that's our job. And so the question was, what are your approaches to team management? And one of them is to not be the solution all the time if you're the leader.
I think that's great advice. And talk openly about the hard things and the tension. You're always, I mean, and to your point, Patty, tension's good. You know, it's not necessarily a bad thing because you get to the heart of the hard things when you debate and you talk about these things, but you have to do it in a respectful way.
Yeah. And if everything's easy and happy all the time, you're not probably pushing it very hard, right? And and that's the, you know, back to the team metaphor, the things that are amazing that you accomplish together with other people at work are often things that are hard.
Yeah.
And so learning how to push through that together is a skill that will last you the rest of your life, right? Not just at work, but certainly at work will help you be successful.
But I think your point about not being the solution, like, and I was just thinking, like, be the leader. Yeah. Lead them through that. Don't try to solve it, but show them how to do it by you doing it.
Yeah, which means you got to get better at it too, which means a little self-reflection for you to say, is there anybody that of one of my peers that I might be modeling the wrong behavior, right? Yeah. Again, you know, I know it sounds so simple and so cliched, but it's not what you say, it's what you do.
I know. Perception's reality, my friend. Okay, you want to do the next one?
How do I juggle personal and professional responsibilities? My spouse has developed a disability that has altered my priorities in life. They weren't in a high-paid role before, so I've always been the higher earner, but now I feel guilty about not being able to give 100% to my work. How can I best navigate this?
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear about that. That's a tough situation to be in.
And while we may not all be in that situation, we are all always, or at least sometimes, in a situation that's very similar to this.
I know. Agreed.
A new baby at home, a sick parent, losing a pet. I mean, there's the juggling my personal and professional relationship is probably a question we all ask ourselves.
All the time.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
And I learned when I was a young whippersnapper and I worked at Sun, I worked with a woman named Carol Bartz. She went on to become the CEO of Yahoo. She was the head of sales at Sun, like the only woman on the other side of the cement ceiling there, right?
Right.
And I had her come speak to a women's group one time, and they said, "Oh, how do you find balance, right? How do you do it? How do you balance, your career and your family?" And she said, "There's not a scale, right? It just doesn't work that way." And so she said, "Here's what I do, and it may not work for you, but here's what I do. I negotiate pretty frequently with my family the things that are absolutely critical and must be important, whatever those, and say, nothing will come between me and your ballet recital, doctor's appointment, whatever those things are. And I will go to work and I will say those are non-negotiables. And there will be times when work's going to take that all away. Right. And so her advice was, it's not balance, it's constant negotiation. In this person's particular case, it's hard to negotiate away when somebody has a disability.
Somebody needs you. Yeah.
And here's the deal. You got to rethink what 100% is. And really evaluate what that means to you. So I remember that early in my career, one of the things I would do when I didn't have children was I would hang out outside. It was a company that had half our company was in Singapore. So all the executives met in the executive conference room at 7:00 at night and had their early morning call with Singapore, right? And I would hang out on a bench outside the door, looking at resumes or whatever and wait for them to come out. And 100% of the time, one of them would go, "Patty, what are you doing here? I've been meaning to talk to you about an opening I have," right? And just because I was there, I got that interaction, right? Then I had my son and I realized, wait a minute, I don't know if I can work 12-hour days anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe I should skip those 2-hour lunches.
Yeah.
Maybe I should not shoot the shit with, right? I mean, and so what I started to think about was the difference between time in the job and time at the job. Right. And so that's a real self-reflection thing you need to do, which is, what does 100% mean? If it means really long hours, you can't do that anymore. So how do you rearrange that? The other thing is to make it just part of the rhythm of the conversations you have with your boss.
Yeah.
Here's my situation. Here's what I can and can't do. I still want to be amazing.
Yeah.
But it's going to be different.
Exactly. And I was going to say that. And to the point that you were making earlier, we all have lives outside of work and we all have these things, whether it's someone that has a disability or a sick parent or a kid or, many, many other things. And I have found that when you are transparent about those things to your boss, they find ways to support you because they've likely been there at some point too.
Right.
Or know someone that has.
Right.
And so when you can go and have that conversation to say, this is going on. However, I still want to be amazing.
Yeah.
But it's going to look different.
And it also might be hey, listen, here's what the next 6 months are going to look like for me.
Yeah.
And we got to figure out how to make that work. I mean, for me, in my example, I started realizing I could just book time on an executive's calendar like anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have to wait for them to notice me. I could, and they would say, "What are you doing here at 10:00 in the morning? I want to talk to you about this opening you have." "Oh, good. I'm glad you're here." Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was like, I just had to change the way I approached it. The other thing about some of those situations is that they take a lot of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You're just
that's
drained.
Yeah. And that's where having a great relationship with your boss and your team members is really helpful because they want to support you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about the guilt because they brought up the guilt.
Yeah.
And, I struggle with the guilt because being a mom is the only thing that I can sort of relate to the situation, because when I'm spending time with Hudson, I feel guilty about not spending time with work. And when I am at work, I feel guilty about not spending time with Hudson.
Been there, done that.
And it's a really hard thing. And the only thing that I've learned to do that helps me with it is what you said earlier. I know if I thought about it as negotiating, right? Like the woman at Sun did, but it's just creating boundaries to say, here are the things that I absolutely have to be for, right? And here are the things that it's okay if I miss at work and at home, like, there's a holiday party in New York. I'm like, I don't need to go.
Yeah, right.
Like they're not going to miss me, and it's a bunch of young people from work. And, I don't need to go to that. It's okay that I missed that, and it's one less person that they have to pay travel for and all this stuff. But I try to think about that. And that's the only thing that kind of helps me be a little bit more calm and not as anxious or guilty.
Yeah. Here's the thing that surprised me that we learned. I loved this part of the pandemic when we all went virtual. Like, remember the viral one of the newscaster who's broadcasting the news?
With the kids
right, and his kids walk to the back room. And,
love that video.
I still love that. But you know what? It showed us that we have lives outside of work, right? And I think before that, we would assume, well, there's the work person and there's the home person. There's two different things, right? And I mean, I often told people, like, don't come to me like I'm your mother. I got children. Thank you very much. I'm their mother. I'm not yours.
Yeah.
But I think that gave us a literal view into the fact that people have lives outside of work.
Yeah.
And it also, for all of us who did work from home, it also made us realize that people are pretty good at scheduling their time to get their stuff done without having to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that's the other advice I would give this person, which is stop and rethink how you do, what work you do, what actually are the functions of what you do, and how you do it, and how you might rearrange for that.
Yeah.
Right. The other part is, this is just personal, like when your friends offer to help, say yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other part about where the work persona gets, for me in particular, the work persona would get in the way of the home persona. Like, I don't ask for help. I can do it myself.
I know. I struggle.
I'm totally on top of it. And the truth is, there are times when you're not totally on top of it. And when your friends and family say, how can I help? You say, you could shop for me.
Yeah. 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 No, I'm not good at that either. I still am not. I'm like, I got it. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. But I mean, this situation for this person is something that they can't fix.
No. Yeah.
Right. And here's the other part that I can hear people in their minds going, yeah, but what's our policy? And if you work in a company that believes in a lot of policies, you should probably find out what your policy is for all that and learn the laws and all that stuff. But it's more about how do I continue to contribute, and how do I renegotiate what's going on as time goes on? Because the other thing is that if this is a long-term situation, then this person's going to have to figure out a long-term solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you just won't get it right at the beginning. I mean, that's the other part you and I have talked about forever and ever, about balancing work and family. It's like, well, A, it's not a balance. And B, as soon as you figure it out for a 5-year-old, they're frickin' 8.
Yeah. And it's a different story. I know, you missed this one because of stuff going on in your life. But with Joanne Lublin, she called it sway, which I really liked, because, you got to sway. Right? Sometimes you got to sway this way, and sometimes you got to sway that way. I'm going to skip to this one because I think it's fun, and I think our younger listeners might might like this one. Etiquette advice. Who picks up the tab? I'm just starting out my career, mostly gaining experience through internships, short contracts, and money is a huge issue for me. So much of the advice for networking and getting a foot in the door suggests asking someone for coffee or getting lunch together. I would love that, but as someone who brings her own coffee in a reusable cup to the office to save a few extra bucks, that is so cute. The idea of navigating that situation scares me. Am I expected to pay because I asked them? It's hard to acknowledge that when I know they earn 10 times my income, and it would be nothing for them to buy lunch, but it would make me stress for the next week. And so much of this stuff is unsaid, and you're expected to know it, but it's all new to me. Any advice?
Oh,
so cute.
And by the way, the person who makes 10 times as much as you has forgotten what it's like to be you.
I know. It's just going to say
years and years ago. And so I am curious to hear what you have to say. I mean, I guess I would say pick a neutral location, maybe at work, where hopefully you already have a coffee pot.
You know what I was going to say? Walks are free.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Right?
The walk and talk. That's
walk
our
and
MO.
talk is free.
Okay, maybe not if you're in Chicago in the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's harder.
But you could walk around the building.
Yeah, you could walk around a mall. I don't know. But walks are free. One-on-ones are free.
You can also you can also just say, can I have a half an hour of your time?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
and
it's like,
you don't have to have it around a meal. And
No, you don't have to do it around coffee. And I think offering to come to them, it can meet you, most office buildings, if they're in an office building, have sort of a neutral place to meet where they probably have free coffee.
Yeah, but it might be somebody that you're networking with that's outside of your company. I mean, that's the other question this person is. I mean, I get that for somebody that you work with. And then there also might be an awkwardness, particularly if you're early in your career, of what if somebody sees me with this person, or would they really talk to me, and blah, 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 blah. I mean, here's the deal. It's that old adage, right? They can't say no unless you ask them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
just got to ask.
You just got to ask.
And they might say, let me take you to coffee.
Yeah, they might. And they might not care.
Yeah. No, and I can say, whenever this happened to me, I always paid. I just did.
Yeah.
For it's somebody that was younger than me, starting out, I always paid.
Okay. So here's advice we're throwing out there for people who get asked.
Pay.
Well, just remember.
What it was like.
Remember what it was like at the beginning. Remember what it was like to be curious. The other thing I would say, it's important that if somebody asks you for career advice, what I think that's the best way to answer them is to tell them what it was really like for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I'm in accounting. I work in payroll. I want to be a CFO someday, preferably next year. And so how do I go about doing that? And I say, you find somebody who's the CFO and go ask them how they got there.
Yeah.
And then their story is, well, I was working 3 jobs, or, I went to school at night to get my MBA for 5 years or 6 years, because that's how long it took, because I was doing it outside of work. Or, I had to work for a couple of people that I really didn't like, but they really knew a lot, and I needed to know what they knew. And so, as somebody who's sharing the information, don't just share the pretty stuff, and don't just make up the Cinderella story. If you go to the right college, then everything will turn out right, because and the other thing, as a person who's asking, don't forget to ask them about their challenges and what the barriers were and how they overcame them.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's good advice.
That's a really important thing when you're new, because you just don't know those things are going to, here's a couple things that are going to happen. They're going to be kind of yucky. Yeah. They happen to everybody.
So don't worry about it.
And when it happens, feel bad and then get over it.
Yeah.
It's really great advice to go and network. It's really great advice to talk to people who have the job you want someday.
Yeah.
It's really great advice to have other people who know what you know. Right. Yeah. So that's back to it's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows what you know. So now this person who is, here's another thing. People love to tell you their life.
Oh, yeah, they love it.
Oh, you want to know how I became so successful?
Let me tell you.
Oh my God, the hardships I went through. And so that's the other thing is it doesn't really have to have a meal or a beverage attached to it.
Walks are free.
Walks are free. And it's like, it would be really great. I'm early in my career. I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. You seem like somebody who's really successful. Could we just spend a half an hour together and maybe you could tell me your story? And trust me, 9 out of 10 people are going to be like, of course, my child.
Yes, let me tell you.
Happy to share with you. That was a very good question.
It was a very good question and sweet.
Yeah.
Do you want to go the opposite end and say, when is it time to retire?
Sure. That's
you want to read that one?
Yeah. When is it time to retire? I've lived a long and great career, and if I wanted to, I could easily retire in the next few years. But I got to admit, I'm a bit apprehensive about this time coming. I don't want to be the old guy that doesn't know when it's time to call it quits, but I'm also a workaholic that would be lost without something to do. Is it selfish to want to stay put for as long as possible, even though I don't have to?
Aw. What say you, Patty?
I just don't think that retirement is really a operational word in this day and age because a lot of people have to keep working long past when they thought they were going to retire because it's just economically required.
Yeah, they have to do it.
So for this person, I have a couple of pieces of advice. One of them is if you're hanging around and you feel like you're the old guy that's gone stale, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because other people are going to treat you like the old guy that's gone stale. So you can do two things. One of them is what you have is something they don't have. You have some wisdom. You have some experience, right? But your wisdom and experience is only valid for what's in front of you now. Right? Because just because you've been there, done that, does not mean you know anything about going there and doing that. Right? Because it was a different circumstance. It was a different time, whatever. Right? So you always want to use your wisdom and your experience to apply it to the problem at hand and the future of where you work. So that's thing one. Thing two is if you're not staying up, if you're a technical person in any kind of technology, I mean finance, I mean HR, I mean whatever you're doing, if you're not paying attention to what's currently happening in the world, you're getting stale. And if you don't care, then maybe you shouldn't do that anymore.
The other thing is maybe he's not getting stale, right?
Yeah, maybe he's not. And the other part
it's like, stay as long as you want.
Well, and here's the other part. Like,
if you love it.
My personal experience is, wow, I just opened my eyes up to so many different ways to work.
Right.
Right? Like I get invited to consult to companies all the time. You know, I don't work there. I'm not there every day. I have conversations with people because of my experience and my wisdom that helps them to think about things a little bit differently. Right. And that doesn't take full time, but it's valuable to other people. So stop and assess what is it that you do that's valuable and realize that if you decide that you don't want to work or have the ability to work. So here's the other deal about consulting. You don't get benefits. You don't get paid time off. You don't get the, so it's a whole different world, but it's a different way of thinking about it. Another one is to work on a project basis, right? I really love doing this kind of thing. I'm really good at doing it. Every company I know needs somebody who can do this. Honestly, it's about a 6-month job. So you can be a contractor.
You know, I was thinking too about my father who just retired.
Oh.
And so he, had a law firm. He was a trial lawyer and he had a law firm for his entire career. But I think my dad, he's still involved. You know, he consults with them. He helps. And I don't know how you've experienced this, but I've seen a lot of people who just retire and they're not involved in something, right? Where something that they use their brain. And I don't know, it seems to take a toll on them. Like, you know, or,
I mean,
like,
for this person, it's probably a good time to think about taking up something that you love outside of work.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
well, that's the other thing. You get to do other things that you love. Like, what do you love to do?
Well, like, playing with my 5-year-old granddaughter,
Right.
which I never got to do when I worked all the time. I never got to play.
My dad plays pickleball and golf.
But he's still involved in the firm, right? And he's still involved
on a contract consulting basis.
Yeah.
Advisory.
So first of all, I would say, open your mind up to other ways of working. The other one is there are things that you do that you take for granted as someone who's from a different generation that are really valuable. You probably come to work on time. You're probably reliable, right? You probably know
you're probably not that concerned about the T-shirts,
right? You probably know that projects have a beginning and an end, right? And so that's the wisdom part. And it's not like somebody who's young or new in their career is stupid. They just don't have that experience of knowing that that's. Yeah, those are important, bedrocks to having a great career,
totally.
Right?
And I think too, like, if he just, if he really is stale, to your point, he should, address
do something
it.
Else,
but if he's not, and they love him and he loves them, hang out.
But if you're not sure, ask him.
Yeah, ask him.
You can always learn. Always, 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 always. So when you're in a meeting or in a conversation with other people in the room on your team, pay attention to their body language. And if they're rolling their eyes and doing big sighs, you're a stale old fart.
Yeah.
And so you either need to liven it up or go do something else, right?
Yeah.
And
don't come in like trying to wear skinny jeans or something.
Oh, dye your hair.
Yeah, don't dye your hair.
Well, but you can't. Midlife crisis happens.
Oh, it does.
That's okay, but that's not retirement. Okay. So I would say to close off on this particular one, there's no such thing because you're not going to stop living your life and you're not going to stop being interested in the things that you do.
Yeah.
And so it's probably a time to mix up the proportion of time you spend in other places. And trust me, if you're just showing up to be stale and boring, they really don't love you.
Yes, probably not.
Gosh, this was really fun. I really loved sort of answering these real questions of real people who are out there in the world. So,
I love it.
Thanks everybody for sending those to us.
Yeah, and look, like we say, work is hard. We're here to help. So keep sending in these questions. There's a link in the show notes. And if you want to send in one for the next episode, just click that link and fill it out and we'll answer your question and we'll help you the best way we can.
Yeah. And if you like this idea, we'll do more of these.
Yeah.
So let us know. Give us some feedback. Give us feedback. Okay. Thanks for listening to TruthWorks. This episode was produced and edited by Megan Hayward. Thank you to Kathleen Speckert and the whole Edit Audio team.